youth gang violence is on the rise in South Africa, and the situation seems to have led to increased fears about safety and security in and around schools. In 2014, the Khayelitsha Commission Report identified youth gang violence and vigilantism as a major acute policing challenge. The increasing number of high school pupils getting involved in gang activities raises a concern about their livelihoods and the negative impact on their education. Professor Khayelitsha from the Department of Social Development at UCT joins us now to talk more on this. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time this evening. We saw a very disturbing incident coming out of Alexandra Township this week, which once again puts into sharp focus about the safety of children in schools. But I just wonder then, what do such incidents tell us about our children and the schools?
Good evening, Bongiwe, and your viewers at home. And thank you very much for inviting me so that we can talk a little bit about this topic, a very concerning trend, and that keeps re-emerging because it's not getting, I think for me, sufficient attention as it deserves. Yes, the children who get involved in youth gang violence, they join gangs for a number of reasons. And then the top, amongst others, is safety, and then protection, because these gangs exist in communities where they live, and especially young boys. They do not have somebody they can go, and report if they're being bullied. So they have no other choice but to join the gangs. And again, those who do not join the gangs, they become easy targets for those who are in gangs. So one way or the other, the young people join gangs for a number of reasons, but like the two most top reasons I've just mentioned. And the gangs do fulfill anyway a lot of needs that they are not fulfilled at home, where they do not have a sense of belonging, a sense of identity. The gangs do give these young people all these kind of, the gangs feel these particular needs that are not felt generally anywhere else. So we need to find a way that we discourage young learners, especially boys, to join gangs as early as possible. We should not leave it until it's too late. For instance, in our study, we found that they actually joined the gangs at about age 14, 16, and then that's when they've just started at high school. Then we feel that it's too late. If we are to do a proactive kind of approach or intervention, for that matter, awareness campaigns about dangers of being in gangs, which include possibly deaths, and criminal records. So we need to target them when they're at primary school, where we can do some kind of pro-social, prevention programs, as well as awareness campaigns.
Now, when one looks at, the age that you've just mentioned, how important is it for, the age to be paid close attention here, especially by those that are, in charge, whether at the schools, the parents, or even some in departments that they could assist?
Yes, the age is very important because we assume that it starts at high school. It doesn't. Before they actually go to a certain high school, they may even decide to go to a specific high school because of certain reasons, which include that's where the most of the gang members are, the gangs that they belong to. So they start very early. In fact, some of them identify some of these gang members, as their heroes, and they aspire to be like some of these gang leaders. So the earlier we start, the better. Age 12, they're already thinking gangs. They're already seeing what these gang members, have and show, in the community, as if it is cool to be in a gang and also to participate in these gang activities. I would say 10 to 12, we should already be talking about, creating awareness about the dangers of being involved in youth gangs.
And I wonder what becomes the community's involvement here to try and then be able to deal with the situation, because, when a lot of people grow up in townships, you're taught that it takes a village to raise a child. So what becomes then the role of the community here?
That's a very good question, Bongiwe. Thanks a lot. because we cannot work on our own as social workers or other teachers. The parents must be involved. The community must be involved and must be willing. What we found in our study that was done by one of my master students that I supervised in her research is that the community seemed to be helpless. They feel that they've done anything and everything. They can't do anything anymore. So instead, they become spectators. They watch, as these gang fights go on. And then some of those who win, they are idolized as heroes, in these communities. But some doesn't really mean that they don't want it to stop. Some community members do want it to stop. But some community members do provide some kind of protection to some of the gang members that they fear most, or they do go to these gangs for protection, or if they seek revenge from somebody else who's whatever owing them, or they've got a grudge with, they sometimes use these very same gang, leaders or members of the gangs to fight on their behalf. So the community does promote sometimes these gang violence, but not always. Sometimes they have. Also, they rely on police, because the police seemingly are also failing to curb the gang violence. So there's some kind of helplessness in the community, because also the police are actually not playing their role sufficiently in curbing the youth gang violence.
When one looks at your research, there's quite a number of areas that draw one's attention, and I'd like us to talk about this particular one where there's traditional belts that are being spoken about, that these belts somehow provide some kind of protection. Tell us more.
Yes, that was a very interesting finding, Bongiwe, where young people believe generally, not only just young people, in the black societies where they have a belief that if you have a belt around your upper arm, and then you get that belt basically from a traditional healer who says that you'll be, well protected, nothing will happen to you, you'll actually get acquitted at courts if you have that belt. It's very expensive, so they try and and raise as much money as they can so that each gang member can actually afford that belt, which seemingly is protecting them. So it's kind of known in the community that if you do have that belt, you are well protected. Nothing will happen against you. You will not be arrested. If you do, you'll be acquitted.
And there's another very disturbing part, and you alluded to it, the revenge killings. These revenge killings, some of the people you're speaking to, and I quote, we felt so good only when we killed someone. Because we get revenge, because died, it is like that. When we lose one of us, we cry and become angry and seek revenge for them, no matter how many they are. Even if one of us dies, we don't run away from them. And then another one says, when we kill, we have a reason. We are angry. That is why we killed each other. We wanted revenge, and we did not stab just for the fun of it. I get chills down my spine just reading that some of these young people think that what they're doing is correct.
Absolutely. It tells us the extent of violence that is sort of ingrained in their thinking and in their attitude, that human life is actually nothing to them, because they have a battle to win, and they will go to whatever extent it takes to emerge victorious in these gang battles. So it becomes a very dangerous terrain. That is why the community members, they're also scared for their own lives. Even the police also, they are scared because, anything can happen. They are killed, just like nothing. Their service pistols are taken just like that. And then remember, they are young. They don't think twice. If they think of something, they talk about it now, they do it now. It's unlike adults where you have to think twice about your children, about your family. Young people, peer pressure is very strong. And they often act, out of immediate gratification. So the human life has lost value amongst these gangs, and hence killings is so rife. And of course, if you have killed, you sort of get some kind of recognition, and you are considered a hero. So similarly, as other gangs in prisons that you have to kill, how they differ from one gang culture to the other. So some of them you really have to kill to show that you are brave enough to belong to that particular gang.
How then does a parent, given what you're describing, prevent their child from even becoming a gang member, or, not seeking protection from these particular gangs?
That is a very good question, because like the picture I've painted now shows a situation where it feels like it's kind of doom. The teachers are helpless, the police are helpless, the community is helpless. So therefore, at the end of the day, it becomes an individual, decision to make. So if you've got projects or programs, should I say, that are anti-gang or pro-social, those kind of projects that social workers can, facilitate in schools, we need as many as possible of those kind of programs, which are working against these kind of negative, what is rife out there. So social workers do not only just do therapeutic intervention, they also run programs. So if we have more of those kind of programs, then we start very early to say that there is a different way of life, programs that work on their self-esteem, programs that show them that there are alternatives besides what they see every day in their communities.
And I wonder how big was this problem, in the communities where you've managed to speak to some of these young gang members? Is it something that the communities are really, really scared about, or is it just a small group of young people?
No, it's not. It's not a small group. It's actually rife. These gangs are known, and then people just don't talk about because they're scared of them. My student actually, when I supervised her, she couldn't, get easily participation. She had to do a snowball sampling, speaking to one member who will refer you to the other member. Because remember, they don't want to be sort of known for police who can sort of, attack them or target them. So you got to be very careful how you work with them, especially when it comes to research. But people know that the gangs arrive. Sometimes they show off in the funerals of one of their gang members when they have to attend. So they are known, but it's just something that you just don't talk about, but they are there.
Do they show remorse at all?
No, they should not show remorse. It's one of the expectations from the other gangs, that if you are brave and you are some of them are called warriors, even their names are called warriors, is that you are a warrior. If it means you must die, then you will die. So that's how brave they can be. And that bravo of being a man, that is sort of overly exaggerated, what it is to be a man and what it is to be a soldier. You die, on your back or with a sword. Those kind of sayings that they say amongst themselves to give each other courage.
Was there any, anything that you saw from those that were sampled here that may resemble some kind of regret, when it comes to joining these particular gangs?
Well, my student found that in her research that some of them do actually want to leave these gangs, but it's not easy. Once you've joined them, it's the most difficult thing to leave the gangs. You cannot easily leave, because if you leave, remember, you already have a lot of information about what they do, their secrets and all that. So if you leave, you can also be killed, because now you're living with a lot of information and you also become their enemy. So it's extremely, extremely difficult to leave gangs, but it's not impossible. It can be done, but it's got to be done very strategically, in a way that does not, put you in danger. So there are, groups that you can approach, or professionals, as well as police that can help, that can protect you as an individual who wants to leave gangs.
finally, let's look at then the process of, the law, because the easiest thing here to do would be to just arrest whoever's caught, put them behind bars. But is this the only and correct way to then deal with such young offenders?
Obviously, no matter how angry we are as a society, we must understand that there is a Child Justice Act, which is a legislation that we must all respect and abide with, which tells us how to deal with child and youth offenders. If they are under the age of 18, they have to be dealt with according to the provisions of the Child Justice Act. They have to be assessed individually. The probation officer will try and find out what is going on, the circumstances of this particular child. So it's an individualized approach, not a gang approach. No matter they've committed the offense as part of the gang, but when they enter the criminal justice system, they should receive individual assessment by a probation officer who will then decide, together with the prosecutor and the magistrate, what would be the way forward in dealing with this particular child. And of course, because they are young, we often try to give them a second chance according to the Child Justice Act, which says, is it possible that if they take responsibility, we can give them an opportunity for rehabilitation in what we call the diversion programs? The case would be diverted so that they can attend a diversion program. Some of these are done in the community, but some of them have to be done in a secure care kind of facility. So once they complete that diversion program and they show that they've understand now the far-reaching consequences of their behavior, and then they're not likely to offend again, and perhaps also not joining the gangs, then the case can also be withdrawn, and then the young person can start all over again, sort of live a crime-free lifestyle. However, if they take advantage of these diversion opportunities, or they don't seem to learn, or they keep committing even more serious offenses, the Child Justice Act does also make provision that they can be dealt with in a very harsh way. For instance, they can be imprisoned if they have committed a very serious offenses and they have not been responding to previous diversion programs.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We certainly do appreciate those insights. That was Professor Thulan Xabane of the University of Cape Town.